Do you have a sense of which positions they want to target in free agency versus the draft, are more likely?
I think both running back and receiver they want to target in free agency, and then that would leave the defensive side of the ball, because they still need, depending what happens with Zach Brown, they're still going to need a linebacker. You always need help on your defensive line. I think the Eagles are the most recent example of what a dominant defensive line can do. But I think receiver and running back, Isaiah Crowell and Dion Lewis, I think, are two guys that make sense for the Skins. Crowell is the same thing, coming off a rookie deal. I think he's only 25. Lewis is a few years older. I think he's 27, and he's missed some time for injury. But, Jay Gruden talked kind of at length. Doug Williams said the Redskins have to upgrade the run game. There's no doubt about it. So that's the baseline that they're looking to improve. And then Jay Gruden talked about wanting a banger on first and second downs. He talked about wanting an all-purpose back that can kind of play whenever. And if you look at Crowell's game and Dion Lewis's game, Crowell is absolutely a banger. I mean, that guy runs downhill with force. And Dion Lewis, when healthy, is one of those guys that's really, really hard to bring down to the ground. I don't think they would sign both of them. I don't think there's that kind of run game overhaul coming. But because they invested a draft pick in Pirine last year. I think they still like him, want to see what he did.
I wanted to ask you about Pirine because if you do bring in a guy like Crowell and you've got Chris Thompson, it's like, what's left for Pirine?
I'm telling you, he might be on the outside looking out, or whatever the word is. What's the phrase?
Outside looking in.
Yes, thank you.
Outside
looking out's not correct. Right.
I don't think so. I mean, you never know, but they spent the draft pick on him last year. He did not play well early in the year. He did not play well early in the year, but he did start to run harder and better late in the season. I mean, if you look at against the Cardinals, he played pretty well, but he didn't do enough that clearly no running back did enough that the team doesn't think they have to get better. And I would argue this, I think the run game as a whole needs to improve, and that's not just on the running backs. I think schematically they are overly reliant on run plays that ask tight ends to be a key part of the blocking scheme, and I think maybe they need to get away from some of those. I mean, how many 3rd and 1s do we see where they tried to run power up the middle and it just got stuffed?
JP, here's why I think Pirine might actually be in trouble. God bless him. I hope he has a 10-year career. But, I mean, when you guys were talking to Jay in Indianapolis, he was hyping up Capri Bibbs. He was hyping up Byron Marshall.
Everybody
we all
in the roster.
They're going to sign or draft someone. You still have Kelly. You still have Thompson. You still have Pirine. I mean, there's like 7, 8 guys in the mix for basically 3 jobs.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is we still haven't even talked about Rob Kelly, who is still the best of all the Redskins running backs at avoiding the first tackler and avoiding negative yardage, which is something they really care about too. So it's easy to sit here and discuss what's going to happen in the run game, but I don't know. It's tough for me to see Pirine being in trouble, but you never know. You're right. He didn't mention Samaje once, and maybe that's because, in his mind he's a given. But I do think the team realizes they were overly reliant on Chris Thompson last year, and they can't go into 2018 with the same mindset.
JP, do you think the Redskins fell in love with anybody at the Combine from those performances? It's hard not to when a guy like Derwin James from Florida State, he's 6'2", 215, he ran a 4.47. Is there anybody that they were just smitten by at the Combine, that they weren't really that into pre-Combine?
I'm not.
I think they really like Josh Jackson, the cornerback out of Iowa. And he's a guy that made a lot of plays for the Hawkeyes. He had 8 interceptions last year in the Big Ten, where it's, you're playing Wisconsin and Nebraska. It's not all these teams. It's not like playing in the Big 12 where teams are throwing the ball 60 times a game. Good size, ran well. But the Combine, especially, it's funny. Everybody's there to watch these kids work out and everything, but it's much more about setting your free agency plans and being in one place and being able to talk to all these agents and scouts and everything else than I really think I mean, most teams are going to look at what they did in college significantly more. I think if one, not to take a positive from a negative, but the Skins liked Ohio State lineman Billy Price going into Indy, and it's terrible that he suffered an injury when really you could make the argument that these kids shouldn't even have to work out for all these scouts because they've already done so much in their college careers. But, he injures his pec muscle while he's there, and now I think you could argue there's a chance he might slip in the draft. And recent history suggests the Redskins are not scared to take a player that falls because of medicals. And if you look at Kendall Fuller and Fabian Moreau, they've done it in the last 2 drafts. Price is a first-round talent that if he slides to 44, the Redskins' second-round pick, all of a sudden you're looking at some value, assuming you think the injury can fully heal by training camp.